20 years ago, I buried my son. Closed casket. Final goodbye. Last month, my phone rang at 2:47 a.m. The caller ID said his name. When I answered, I heard his voice, older, afraid, saying he didn't have much time. But here's the thing. He was buried with that phone. So I did something crazy, and what I found out changed everything I thought I knew about that night.
Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments section where you're watching from, so I'll know how far my story has gone.
They say time heals all wounds. They lied. 20 years, 7,300 days, and not one of them made it easier to walk past that bedroom door. I'm Kevin, 58 now, graying at the temples, joints that crack when I stand too fast, hands that smell like sawdust no matter how much I scrub them. I work at Morrison Lumber Yard in Tacoma. Have for 32 years. Clock in at 6, clock out at 3. Drive home to a house that stopped living the day my son did. Landon's room is exactly how he left it. The baseball glove on the dresser, stiff now, leather split down the palm. Posters still taped to the walls, Nirvana, Michael Jordan mid-dunk, a map of Yellowstone we never got to visit. His Seahawks pennant droops from the thumbtack. There's a half-empty Gatorade bottle on the nightstand. I don't know why I keep it. Maybe because throwing it away feels like erasing him twice. Angela couldn't take it. She left during year 2, said the house felt like a mausoleum. I didn't fight her. What could I say? She was right. I'd turned our home into a shrine and myself into its priest. She moved to Portland, remarried, sent a Christmas card once. I never opened it. I eat alone. I sleep alone. Every Sunday, I drive to Riverside Cemetery with carnations, his favorite, and sit on the wet grass beside his headstone. I tell him about work, about the Mariners, about nothing, really, because what is there to say to a son who's been 17 forever? People moved on. His friends grew up, got married, had kids of their own. But me? I stayed here, frozen, trapped in October 2004, the night a drunk driver ran a red light on Route 9 and stole my entire future in a single, sickening crunch of metal. I buried Landon in his Seahawks jersey, and in the pocket, because I couldn't bear to keep it, I tucked his old flip phone, that silver Motorola he'd begged for, the one that played that awful boy band song every time it rang. It went into the ground with him. I thought that was the end. But last month, something changed. It started small, a flicker of movement in my peripheral vision, a creak of a floorboard I swore I hadn't stepped on. Once I thought I smelled his cologne, Axe body spray, the kind teenage boys drown themselves in. But when I turned, there was nothing. Then 3 weeks ago, I woke up at 2:47 a.m. The house was silent. Too silent. The kind of quiet that hums in your ears. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd heard something or just dreamed it. And then I heard it. Faint. Distant. Muffled, like it was coming from underwater. A ringtone. Not mine. Not the generic buzz of my current phone. No. It was that song. The one Landon used. The boy band tune that used to drive me insane every time someone called him. I sat up, heart pounding, ears straining. Silence. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. I told myself it was a dream, a cruel trick of grief and exhaustion. But deep down, in the part of me that still listened for his voice in empty rooms, I knew better.
It happened again. Same time, 2:47 a.m., exactly 1 week later. I wasn't asleep. I'd been lying there for hours, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that looked like a question mark. Fitting, really. My whole life had become one giant unanswered question. Then I heard it. Not faint this time, not distant, clear, sharp, cutting through the silence like a blade. Bye, bye, bye. That stupid NSINC ringtone. The one Landon thought was hilarious. The one I used to yell at him to change because it drove me crazy during dinner, during movies, during everything. My chest seized. I sat up, every muscle in my body locked. The floorboards creaked under my weight. Each step felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff. The ringtone played again, louder now. I reached the closet, hand trembling on the doorknob. My breath came in short, jagged bursts. This wasn't possible. It wasn't real. Phones didn't ring from the grave. Dead sons didn't call. But the sound didn't care what I believed. I yanked the door open. There, on the top shelf, beneath a stack of old tax papers and a shoebox of receipts, a faint blue glow pulsed in the darkness. My old phone, the one I'd kept in a drawer for years after getting a new one, the one I'd forgotten existed. It was vibrating, glowing, alive. I pulled it down with shaking hands, nearly dropped it. The screen was cracked, battery icon blinking red. How the hell was it even on? But none of that mattered, because the caller ID read Landon. My knees gave out. I collapsed against the wall, sliding down until I hit the floor. The phone buzzed in my palm, insistent, demanding, "Answer it! Don't answer it! Answer it!" My thumb moved on its own. I pressed the green button, lifted the phone to my ear. Static. Thick, crackling static, like a radio stuck between stations. My throat closed. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Then through the hiss, "Dad!" I stopped breathing. The voice was young, strained, afraid. It was Landon's voice. "Dad, are you there?" A sob tore out of me before I could stop it. My hand clamped over my mouth. Tears blurred my vision. "Landon! Landon, is that? How is this?" "Dad, listen to me." His voice cracked, desperate. "I don't have much time." "What? What do you mean? Where are you? Baby, where are you?" More static, a strange echo like he was speaking from inside a tunnel. "I can't explain, not yet. But Dad, you have to—" The line distorted. His voice fractured into pieces. "Wasn't an accident." "What? Landon, what wasn't an accident?" I pressed the phone harder against my ear, as if I could pull him closer through sheer will. "Landon, talk to me!" "They need to know." "Who? Who needs to know? Landon, please!" A high-pitched whine pierced through the static. I winced, pulling the phone back. "Dad!" His voice was fading now, like he was being dragged away. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Landon! Landon!" Silence. The line went dead. The phone screen went black. I sat there on the cold hallway floor, clutching a dead phone to my chest, sobbing like the day they lowered him into the ground. Because my son, my buried son, had just called me, and he said it wasn't an accident. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat at the kitchen table, the old phone in front of me like evidence at a crime scene. The sun came up. I didn't move. Coffee went cold in the mug beside me. I just stared at that cracked screen, waiting for it to light up again. It didn't.
By 7 a.m., the rational part of my brain, the part that had kept me functional for 20 years, started fighting back. It wasn't him. It couldn't be him. Phones malfunction, lines cross. Some sick kid with hacking skills probably spoofed the number. Or maybe it was a glitch, some digital ghost in an old network. Technology does weird things. I'd read about it online once. Phantom calls, old voicemails resurfacing years later. That had to be it. I picked up the phone, hands steadier now in daylight. The battery icon still blinked red. How was it even powered on? I hadn't charged this thing in over a decade. I popped open the back. The battery was swollen, corroded at the edges. It should have been dead. But it wasn't. I pressed the power button. Nothing. Tried again. Still nothing. Of course, because ghost phones only work at 2:47 a.m., right? I laughed, a bitter, broken sound that echoed in the empty kitchen. I was losing it. 20 years of grief had finally cracked me open, and now my mind was playing tricks, manufacturing hope from despair. That's all this was. A mental breakdown dressed up as a miracle. But then, why did his voice sound so real? I grabbed my current phone, pulled up my contacts, scrolled to the number I'd never deleted, Landon's old cell. I'd kept it there, archived under my boy, even though I knew it had been disconnected 20 years ago. My thumb hovered over the call button. This was stupid, pointless. I pressed it anyway. It rang. Once, twice. Then, the number you have dialed is no longer in service. Please check the number and try again. I hung up, tried again. Same automated message. Cold, clinical, final. See? Nothing. Just a dead line, a dead son, a living man going insane. I set the phone down and pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw stars. Get it together, Kevin, I whispered. He's gone. He's been gone. I stood, dumped the cold coffee in the sink, and forced myself to get ready for work. Routine. That's what I needed. Normalcy. 8 hours of lumber orders and forklift beeping and guys talking about the Seahawks game. Anything to drown out the impossible. I was halfway to the door when my current phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification. One new voicemail. I pulled it out, frowning. I hadn't heard it ring, hadn't missed any calls. I opened the notification. My blood turned to ice. Voicemail from Landon. Received 2:47 a.m. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. I stared at the screen, heart hammering so hard I thought it might crack a rib. My thumb shook as I pressed play. Static filled my ear. Then, barely audible beneath the crackle, Dad, the cemetery. Tonight. The message cut off. I played it again and again. Same words, same desperate tone. The cemetery. Tonight. I looked at the old phone on the table, then at the voicemail timestamp. My son had been buried for 20 years, but he just told me where to meet him.
I called in sick for work for the first time in 12 years. Morrison didn't ask questions. Maybe he heard something in my voice, the tremor, the edge of hysteria I was barely holding back, or maybe he just didn't care. Either way, I hung up and sat back down at that kitchen table. The voicemail was still there, waiting. I must have played it 30 times that morning. Each time I leaned closer, turned the volume higher, pressed the phone so hard against my ear it left a mark. Dad, the cemetery. Tonight. But there was something else. Something underneath the static I'd missed before. I played it again, closing my eyes this time, blocking out everything but the sound. Static. Heavy breathing. Then faint, almost swallowed by interference. Not over. I sat up straight. Look under the blue box. My heart stopped. The blue box. I knew exactly what he meant. I was on my feet before I could think, taking the stairs 2 at a time. My hips screamed in protest, but I didn't care. I shoved open Landon's door. The hinges groaned like they always did, and stood there, chest heaving. The room stared back at me, frozen, haunted. I hadn't truly looked at this room in years. I'd preserved it, sure, dusted it, but I never really saw it. Not the way I did now, with those words echoing in my skull. Look under the blue box. There was only one blue box in this room. On the top shelf of his closet, a Nike shoebox, royal blue with a white swoosh. The box his basketball sneakers came in junior year. He'd used it to store random junk, ticket stubs, notes from friends, little pieces of teenage life I'd never thought to go through. I dragged his desk chair over, climbed up, and pulled the box down. Dust showered over me. The cardboard was soft, warped with age. I sat on the edge of his bed and lifted the lid. The smell hit me first. Old paper, cologne, him. Inside, ticket stubs from a Mariners game we went to in 2003. A movie stub for Kill Bill, a drawing of a dragon he'd done in 8th grade, a stack of photos held together with a rubber band that crumbled the second I touched it. I flipped through them. Landon at the lake, Landon with his friends at homecoming, Landon holding a fish he'd caught, grinning like he'd won the lottery. My throat tightened. But then I saw something else. Underneath the photos, folded pieces of paper. I pulled them out, hands shaking. First was a phone bill from October 2004, his number highlighted in yellow. Dozens of calls, outgoing and incoming, all to the same number. One I didn't recognize. The second was a printed email. No sender name, just a string of letters and numbers. The message was short. You need to stop asking questions. This is your last warning. My stomach dropped. The third was a newspaper clipping, folded into a small square. The paper was brittle, yellowing at the edges. I unfolded it carefully. The headline read, "Tacoma teen killed in Route 9 collision. Driver flees scene." I'd seen this article before. I'd read it 100 times in the weeks after Landon died. But this copy was different. Someone had circled a name in red ink. Not the drunk driver they'd arrested 2 days later. A different name. In the paragraph about witnesses, Detective Raymond Kohler, and in the margin, in Landon's handwriting, 3 words. He was there. I stared at the clipping, my pulse roaring in my ears. Landon hadn't just been in an accident. He'd been investigating something, and someone had warned him to stop. I read the article 5 times before my hands stopped shaking. The drunk driver's name was printed in bold. Aaron Whitley, age 34, BAC .19. He'd run the red lead at Route 9 and Cascade Boulevard, T-boned Landon's Honda Civic on the driver's side. Landon was pronounced dead at the scene. I remembered every word of the original reports, every press conference, every update. They'd arrested Whitley 2 days later at a motel in Olympia. He pled guilty, got 15 years, served 9. But this clipping had details I'd either forgotten or never knew.
buried in the third paragraph. Witnesses reported seeing two individuals flee the vehicle on foot immediately following the collision. Whitley was apprehended 48 hours later. The identity of the second occupant remains unknown. Police have not ruled out additional charges pending further investigation. I read it again. Two individuals. There'd been someone else in the car. Someone who ran. Someone the police never found. Why didn't I remember this? Why hadn't anyone told me there was a passenger? My mind spun, grasping for answers that didn't make sense. And then the worst thought, impossible, insane, but suddenly undeniable, crept in. What if they got it wrong? What if the body in that closed casket wasn't Landon? I shot to my feet, the clipping clutched in my fist. My chest tightened. No, that was crazy. I'd been at the hospital. I'd signed papers. I'd buried my son. But you never saw him, a voice whispered. The casket was closed. They said the injuries were too severe, that I shouldn't see him like that I should remember him the way he was. And I listened. God help me, I'd listened. I paced the room, clipping in one hand, phone bill in the other. That unknown number, those calls, the warning email. Landon had been looking into something that got someone's attention, and then he died. Or did he? I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to slow my breathing. This was grief talking, desperation, the mind's cruel way of offering hope where there was none. But then, I looked down at the clipping again, and I froze. There, in the top right corner of the yellowed newspaper, a dark ring. A coffee stain. Fresh. The kind that leaves a faint brown halo, still slightly damp at the edges. I lifted the paper closer, my pulse spiking. The stain hadn't been absorbed fully. It was recent, days old maybe, not 20 years. My mouth went dry. I hadn't touched this box since 2004. I hadn't even known it existed until an hour ago. So how the hell did a fresh coffee stain get on a 20-year-old newspaper clipping locked inside my dead son's closet? I spun around, eyes scanning the room like someone might be standing there, watching. Nothing. Just the posters, the glove, the silence. But the stain didn't lie. Someone had been in this room. Recently. Someone had opened this box, read this article, left a trace. Or Landon had. The phone, the voicemail, the cemetery. It's not over, Dad. I looked back at the clipping, at the circled name, Detective Raymond Kohler, and Landon scrolled words in the margin. He was there. Not he investigated, not he reported. He was there. At the crash. I grabbed my keys. If my son was alive, if any part of this nightmare was real, I needed answers. And I knew exactly where to start. The cemetery. Tonight.
I wasn't going to wait until tonight. I needed proof, something real, something I could hold that didn't dissolve the second I questioned my sanity. So I grabbed the old flip phone and drove straight to Tech Hub on Pacific Avenue. It was one of those cluttered repair shops that smelled like solder and energy drinks, run by a kid who looked barely old enough to vote. His name tag read Flynn. "Help you?" he asked, not looking up from the Xbox controller he was disassembling. I set the phone on the counter. I need to know if this thing actually made a call. He glanced at it, raised an eyebrow. "Dude, that's a relic. Can you check it or not?" Something in my tone made him look up. He saw my face, whatever desperation or exhaustion was written there, and his smirk faded.
Yeah, okay, let me see what I can do. He took the phone to the back, plugged it into something that looked like a miniature server rack, and started typing. I stood there, arms crossed, jaw clenched, praying he'd find something that made sense. 10 minutes later, he came back. His expression had changed. "So, this is weird," he said slowly. "Weird how?" "This phone's carrier service was discontinued in 2006, like fully deactivated. No SIM, no network access. It shouldn't be able to send or receive anything." My heart sank. So the call didn't happen. I didn't say that. He turned the monitor toward me. I pulled archived metadata from the old carrier database. Don't ask how, it's technically not legal, but there is a record. I leaned in. What kind of record? An outgoing ping, last week, 2:47 a.m. The air left my lungs. From where? He clicked something. A map appeared. A red dot pulsed on the screen. Cell tower on Riverside Drive, near... He squinted. Looks like Riverside Cemetery. The room tilted. "That's impossible," I whispered. Flynn shrugged. "Yeah, well, so is a dead phone pinging a deactivated network. But here we are." I stared at the red dot, at the timestamp, 2:47 a.m. The same time I got the call, from a cell tower 20 feet from my son's grave. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the cemetery, even though it was barely past noon. The gates were open, the grounds were empty except for a landscaper trimming hedges near the entrance. I parked and walked the familiar path to Landon's plot, Section C, Row 12. I could have done it blindfolded. His headstone was simple. Gray granite, his name, his dates, beloved son. I stood there, staring at the ground, at the patch of grass I'd watered with 20 years of tears. "What are you trying to tell me?" I whispered. The wind picked up, rustling the trees. Nothing answered. I stayed until the sun started to set, until the landscaper left and the gates creaked shut and I was alone with the dead. And then I saw it. A flicker. Faint. Brief. Near the grave. A light. Not a reflection, not a flashlight. A soft, pulsing glow. Blue-white. Like a phone screen. It was there for 3 seconds, then gone. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I stumbled forward, nearly tripping over a stone marker, eyes locked on the spot. Nothing. Just grass. Just silence. But I'd seen it. I crouched down, ran my hand over the ground. Cold. Damp. And then my fingers brushed something. A piece of paper. Folded. Tucked under a small rock. I pulled it out, unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a receipt from a gas station in Bellingham, dated 4 days ago, and written on the back in handwriting I would know anywhere. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'll explain everything. Midnight. Come alone." I waited in my truck until 11:45 p.m., parked just outside the cemetery gates. The street was empty. No cars, no witnesses. Just me, the darkness, and a note that shouldn't exist. Come alone. I'd thought about calling someone, the police, a friend, if I had any left. But what would I say? That my dead son left me a receipt at his own grave? They'd lock me up. So I came alone. At midnight, I grabbed the flashlight from my glove box and climbed the fence. The metal was cold, slick with dew. My hands slipped twice before I made it over, landing hard on the other side. Pain shot through my knee, but I didn't stop. I knew the way by heart. The cemetery was different at night. The headstones cast long shadows. Trees swayed like they were whispering secrets. Every sound, Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves felt like a warning. I reached Section C, Row 12, Landon's grave. I stood there, flashlight shaking in my hand, breath misting in the cold air. "Landon," my voice cracked. "If you're here, if this is real, I need you to show me." Silence. Just the wind. And then, static. Faint. Crackling. Like a radio signal trying to break through interference. I spun around, flashlight cutting through the dark. Nothing. No one. The static grew louder. It was coming from below. From the grave. My stomach twisted. I dropped to my knees, pressing my ear to the cold ground. The sound pulsed. Rhythmic. Almost like breathing. No, this isn't... I pulled back, chest heaving, and that's when I saw it. The ground. It was disturbed. Not much, just a small patch near the headstone where the grass looked freshly turned, loose soil, uneven. Someone had been digging here. My hands moved before I could stop them. I clawed at the dirt, flashlight tucked under my chin, fingernails splitting as I dug deeper. 6 inches down, my fingers hit something hard. Plastic. I pulled it free, brushing off the soil. A small Ziploc bag, sealed tight. Inside, a SIM card. Brand new. No scratches, no age. I held it up to the light, heart hammering. Why would someone bury a SIM card in my son's grave? And then I remembered the phone bill, the unknown number, the calls. This was a message. I turned the bag over. On the back, written in Sharpie, "Put it in the phone." My breath caught. I fumbled for the old flip phone in my pocket, pulled it out. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I popped the back open. The old SIM slot was empty, corroded, useless. But this SIM was different, smaller, newer. I forced it into place. It shouldn't have fit, but it did. The phone vibrated. Once. Twice. The screen flared to life, bright, blinding blue. And then it started ringing. Not the NSYNC song, just a plain old-fashioned ring. The caller ID loaded, pixel by pixel. Incoming call, Landon. I stared at the screen, frozen, every logical part of my brain screaming at me to throw the phone away, to run, to wake up from this nightmare. But I didn't. I pressed the green button, lifted it to my ear. Static. Heavy breathing. And then, cutting through the noise, "Dad, you came." His voice. Real. Clear. Alive. Tears poured down my face. "Landon, where are you? What is happening?" A pause. Long enough that I thought I'd lost him. Then, "I never died, Dad. They made you think I did."
What do you mean you never died? My voice was barely a whisper. My knees sank deeper into the dirt. The phone pressed so hard against my ear it hurt. "Dad, listen to me." His voice was urgent now, stronger. No static, just him, my boy. "The body they buried, it wasn't me." The world spun. "That's impossible. I was at the hospital. I signed..." "You never saw me, did you?" The words hit like a fist to the chest. "They told me the injuries were too severe, that I shouldn't..." "Exactly. They told you that because they needed you to believe it. The closed casket, the rushed funeral. Dad, they switched us." "Switched? Who switched you? Landon, what are you..."
The passenger, the one who ran from the crash, that was me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The other kid, Aaron Whitley's little brother, he was in the passenger seat. He looked like me, same build, same age. He died on impact. They used him, switched our IDs, made it look like I was the one who... Why? Why would anyone do that? Because I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. What? What did you see? A long pause. I could hear him breathing, ragged, afraid. Detective Kohler. The night before the crash, I was at the pier with friends. We saw him meet someone, a drug handoff, cash, a lot of it. He saw me taking pictures on my phone. My stomach dropped. The next night, I got run off the road. It wasn't an accident, Dad. It was a setup. Whitley was paid off. Kohler made sure the wrong body got tagged. He buried the evidence. He buried me. But you survived. Barely. I woke up in a warehouse, tied up. Kohler told me if I ever came back, if I ever surfaced, he'd kill you. He'd kill Mom. He said I was dead to the world and I'd better stay that way. Tears streamed down my face. My hand shook. So you've been hiding? For 20 years? I didn't have a choice. His voice broke. I wanted to come home so many times, but he's still out there, still watching. If he knows I contacted you, then why now? Why reach out after all this time? Because he's dying. I froze. Kohler has stage 4 cancer. 6 months, maybe less. And before he goes, he's tying up loose ends. I heard through someone on the inside. Dad, you're on that list. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. He's coming for you. Soon. You have to disappear. You have to... Headlights. Bright. Blinding. They swept across the cemetery, cutting through the darkness like searchlights. A truck. Black. Slow moving. Coming up the access road. Landon? Dad, get out of there, now! Wait, where do I... The line went dead. The screen went black. I shoved the phone in my pocket and killed the flashlight. My heart slammed against my ribs. The truck rolled closer, headlights scanning the graves. I dropped flat against the ground, pressing myself into the dirt beside Landon's headstone. The engine idled, low, menacing. A door opened. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. I held my breath, every muscle locked. The footsteps stopped, right on the other side of the grave. I could see the shadow stretching across the grass. Tall, broad-shouldered. A man's voice, rough, cold. I know you're here, Kevin. My blood turned to ice. You think I don't have eyes on you? You think I don't know every move you make? He stepped closer. I could see his boots now, leather, worn. Your boy should have stayed dead. He crouched down, and through the gap between headstones, I saw his face, Detective Raymond Kohler. Older, thinner, sickly, but unmistakable. He smiled. Let's have a talk.
I didn't move, didn't breathe. Kohler stood there for what felt like an eternity, scanning the graves, his shadow stretching across the ground like a stain. Then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and muttered something under his breath. He straightened, looked around one more time, and walked back to the truck. The engine rumbled to life. The headlights swung away. I stayed flat against the ground until the sound faded completely. Then I ran. I don't remember most of the drive home. Just gripping the wheel, checking the rearview mirror every 5 seconds, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. But halfway down Elm Street, I saw them. Headlights, the same black truck, following me. Not close, just close enough to let me know. I turned onto my street. The truck turned too. I pulled into my driveway, killed the engine, sat there, hands frozen on the wheel. The truck slowed, stopped at the end of the block, idling, watching. I got out, forced myself to walk calmly to my front door, unlocked it, stepped inside, locked it behind me. I stood in the dark hallway, pulse roaring in my ears, and watched through the window. The truck sat there for 5 more minutes, then it drove away. I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with every light off, the old phone on the coffee table in front of me, waiting for it to ring again. It didn't. By morning, I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. The truck, Kohler, all of it. Then someone knocked on my door. 3 sharp raps. I froze. Checked the peephole. A man stood on my porch, mid-40s, clean cut, button-down shirt, jacket, clipboard in hand. He looked normal. I cracked the door open. "Can I help you?" He smiled, professional, practiced. "Good morning, sir. I'm Richard Calloway. I'm with Northwest Telecom. We've been tracking some unauthorized transmissions in this area. Old carrier frequencies. Possibly illegal signal interference." My stomach tightened. "I don't know anything about that." "Of course, just routine follow-up. We traced one of the signals to this address. Have you been using any outdated devices recently? Old cell phones, maybe?" I kept my face blank. "No, just my regular phone." "Mind if I take a look? Won't take more than a minute." "Actually, I do mind." His smile didn't falter, but something in his eyes shifted. Colder. "I understand. Privacy concerns. Totally reasonable." He pulled a business card from his pocket, handed it to me. "If you notice anything unusual, strange calls, static, unknown numbers, give me a call. We're just trying to keep the network clean." "Sure." He nodded, turned to leave. And that's when I saw it. On his jacket sleeve. A stain. Brown. Circular. A coffee stain. The exact shape, the exact size. The same one from the newspaper clipping in Landon's room. My breath caught. He paused at the bottom of the steps, glanced back, and "Mr. Brennan?" I hadn't told him my name. "Be careful what you dig up. Sometimes the past is better left buried." He walked to a silver sedan parked on the street. Not a black truck, but I knew. He climbed in, started the engine, and drove away. I stood there, business card trembling in my hand. The name printed on it, Richard Calloway, Network Security Specialist. I flipped it over. On the back, written in pen, "Stop looking. Last warning." She was standing on my porch when I came back from the hardware store. Angela. I hadn't seen her in 18 years, not since the Christmas card I never opened, but I would have known her anywhere. Same dark hair, streaked with gray now. Same eyes, brown, tired, but still sharp. She looked at me like she wasn't sure I'd let her in. "Kevin?" Her voice cracked something open inside me. "Angela." I set the bags down. "What are you doing here?" "I heard you've been
asking questions about Landon. My jaw tightened. Who told you that? Does it matter? She stepped closer. Kevin, people are talking. They're saying you've been going to the cemetery at night, that you've been telling people he called you. I looked away. You think I'm losing it? No. Her voice softened. I think you're grieving. Still. Just like me. I met her eyes, saw the pain there, the same wound that never healed. Come inside, I said quietly. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we used to have breakfast as a family, where Landon used to spill orange juice and laugh when I pretended to be mad. Angela held a mug of coffee but didn't drink it, just stared at it. I left because I couldn't breathe in this house. Every corner, every room. He was everywhere. And you wanted to keep him everywhere. I couldn't live in a shrine, Kevin. I just couldn't. I know. But that doesn't mean I stopped loving him, or you. Her voice broke on the last word. I reached across the table, took her hand. It was cold. I'm not crazy, Angela. I know. I looked up, surprised. She took a shaky breath. A year after I moved to Portland, I got a voicemail. My heart stopped. What? I was at work. My phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't answer, but they left a message. She paused, eyes glistening. It was just static. 30 seconds of it. But at the end, I heard a word. Just one. What word? She looked at me, tears spilling over. Help. The air left the room. It sounded like him, Kevin. I swear to God, it sounded like Landon. Why didn't you tell me? Because I thought I was going insane. Her voice rose, trembling. Because I'd just started to put myself back together. And hearing that, thinking that, it would have destroyed me. So I deleted it. I changed my number. I buried it. She wiped her eyes, hands shaking. But now you're saying he called you too. And I don't think we're crazy. I think something's wrong. I pulled out the old phone, set it on the table between us. She stared at it like it was a bomb. He told me the body in the grave isn't his. Her face went white. What? I told her everything. The calls, the voicemail, the SIM card, Kohler, the threat. By the end, she was gripping the edge of the table, knuckles white. If he's alive, she whispered, if he's been out there this whole time, then we buried someone else. Silence. She looked at me, her expression shifting from shock to something harder. Determined. We exhumed the grave, Angela. No, if there's even a chance our son is alive, we dig him up, we find out the truth. I nodded slowly. Okay. She stood. I'll get a lawyer, file the petition. We'll do this right. That'll take weeks, maybe months. She looked at me. Then we do it wrong. I met her eyes. Tonight? Tonight.
We didn't go alone. Angela found a private investigator through a friend, a guy named Garrett Moss, ex-cop, quiet, built like he used to play linebacker,
He didn't ask many questions, just showed up at midnight with 2 shovels and a crowbar. "You sure about this?" he asked, standing at the edge of the grave. I looked at Angela. She nodded. "We're sure. Digging up your son's grave is a special kind of hell. Every shovel of dirt felt like betrayal, like I was desecrating something sacred. But I kept going, because if Landon was alive, if he'd been out there suffering while I mourned a stranger, I needed to know." Angela couldn't watch. She stood by the truck, arms wrapped around herself, staring into the dark. Garrett and I dug in silence. 2 feet, 4, 6. At 8 feet, my shovel hit something solid. Wood. The coffin. My hands started shaking. I dropped the shovel, fell to my knees, and brushed away the dirt with my bare hands. The casket was dented, warped, the brass handles tarnished green. Garrett climbed down beside me, crowbar in hand. "Last chance to walk away?" I shook my head. "Open it." He wedged the bar under the lid, pried. The wood groaned, nails shrieked. The lid cracked open. The smell hit first. Decay, earth, something chemical. I turned away, bile rising in my throat. "Kevin," Garrett's voice was low, steady. "You need to see this." I forced myself to look. The body was mostly bones, fragments of fabric, decomposed tissue. But I recognized the shape, the size. A teenage boy. I'd buried my son in his Seahawks jersey, number 12, his favorite. But this body wasn't wearing it. Instead, there was a faded hospital gown, torn, stained, and on the skeletal wrist, a plastic hospital band. Garrett pulled out his phone, turned on the flashlight, leaned closer. "There's writing." He squinted. "Patient ID. Name's almost gone, but I can make out..." He paused. "Dylan Whitley." My chest constricted. Whitley. Like Aaron Whitley, the drunk driver. His brother, maybe? I stared at the bones, at the wristband. This wasn't Landon. This was someone else's son. "Oh my God," I whispered. Angela appeared at the edge of the grave. Her face was pale, eyes wide. "Kevin?" "It's not him," my voice broke. "It's not Landon." She covered her mouth, a sob tearing out of her. Garrett carefully removed the wristband, bagged it. Then he searched the rest of the coffin, pulled out a tattered wallet, flipped it open. Inside, a driver's license. Dylan Whitley, age 17, Olympia, Washington. He held it up. They swapped IDs, dental records, everything. "But why?" Angela's voice was barely audible. "Why would they do this?" Garrett didn't answer. He was staring at something else in the wallet. A folded piece of paper. He unfolded it carefully. It was a hospital discharge form, dated November 3rd, 2004, 2 weeks after the crash. Patient name, John Doe, unidentified. Facility, Morgantown General Hospital, West Virginia. Injuries, severe trauma, memory loss, facial lacerations. Notes, patient stable, transferred to long-term care. No next of kin located. Garrett looked up at me. West Virginia, 3,000 miles away. My heart pounded. "You think..." The description matches. Male, 17, brown hair, similar build. He pointed to a line at the bottom. Admitted October 20th, the same night as your son's accident. Angela climbed down into the grave, grabbed the paper from his hands, read it once, twice. Then she looked at me, tears streaming. "He's alive!" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Garrett pulled out his phone. "I know someone at Morgantown General. Let me make a call." He stepped away. Angela and I stood there in the grave of a boy who wasn't ours, holding evidence that maybe, just maybe, our son had survived. Garrett came back 5 minutes later. His face was grim.
Patient was discharged in 2006, transferred to a group home. No records after that. So he just disappeared? Not exactly. Garrett handed me his phone. On the screen, a grainy photo from a social services database. A young man, early 20s, scarred face, hollow eyes. But I knew those eyes. I'd looked into them every day for 17 years. "That's Landon," I whispered. Angela gasped. "The file says he goes by a different name now," Garrett said quietly. "Ethan Cole. Lives off the grid. Last known location?" He paused. "Bellingham, Washington." The receipt. The gas station. 4 days ago. "He's close," I breathed. Angela grabbed my arm. "We have to find him." I nodded. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. "Stop digging. You've been warned." Then another. A photo of Angela and me, standing in the grave, taken from the tree line. Someone was watching. Right now.
We left before sunrise. Angela drove. I couldn't. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Garrett stayed behind to document everything. The grave, the body, the wristband. Evidence. In case this whole thing went sideways. The drive to Bellingham took 4 hours. Neither of us spoke much. What was there to say? Our son might be alive. And if he was, someone had stolen 20 years from us. From him. From all of us. West Haven Rehabilitation Clinic sat on the edge of town, tucked between pine trees and a gray, overcast sky. It looked more like a retirement home than a medical facility. Quiet. Isolated. We walked in together, Angela gripping my hand so tight it hurt. The receptionist looked up, young, bored. "Can I help you?" "We're looking for information on a former patient. He would have been here between 2004 and 2006, transferred from Morgantown General." She frowned. "That's a long time ago. I'd need a name." "We don't have one, not exactly. He might have gone by John Doe or Ethan Cole or..." I swallowed. "Marcus Key." Her expression shifted. Something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. "Wait here." She disappeared into a back office. Angela looked at me. "Marcus Key, where did that name come from?" "Garrett found it in the transfer records. It's what they called him after he was discharged. Why would they change his name again?" "I don't know." The receptionist returned with an older woman. Gray hair, kind eyes, a name tag that read, Dr. Lillian Cross, Director. "You're asking about Marcus," she said quietly. My heart stopped. "You remember him?" "I do. He was here for 2 years. Severe trauma. Memory loss. He couldn't remember his name, where he was from, nothing, before the accident." "What accident?" Angela's voice trembled. "We were told he was in a car accident, found on the side of a road in West Virginia. No ID, no family, just lost." I pulled out my phone, showed her the photo Garrett had sent, the one from the social services file. "Is this him?" Dr. Cross studied it, nodded slowly. "Yes, that's Marcus." Angela's breath hitched. "Where is he now?" I asked. "I don't know. He left in 2006. Said he needed to figure out who he was. We tried to keep in touch, but..." She trailed off. "He didn't want to be found." "We think he's our son," I said, voice breaking. "We buried someone else. We've been mourning the wrong boy for 20 years. Her face softened. "I'm so sorry. We need proof. DNA. Something." She hesitated. We kept medical samples, blood work. It's protocol for unidentified patients. If you can provide a sample for comparison, yes, anything. The test took 3 days. 3 days of waiting, hoping, terrified of the answer. Angela stayed with me. We didn't talk much. Just existed in the same space, bound together by the possibility that everything we thought we knew was a lie. That night, the phone rang. Not the old flip phone, my current one. Unknown number. I answered, hands shaking. Static. Then, Dad? The voice was deeper now, worn, but unmistakable. Landon? A pause. Yeah, it's me. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. I heard you found the grave? That you didn't stop looking? I couldn't. Voice broke. Where are you? Somewhere safe. For now. Let me see you. Please. Let us... Not yet. Kohler's still out there. And if he knows I contacted you, he'll come for all of us. I don't care. I just want my son back. Silence. Then softly, Dad, thank you for not giving up. The line went dead. I sat there, phone pressed to my chest, tears streaming down my face. Angela looked at me. Was that him? I nodded. He's alive. She smiled through her tears. And for the first time in 20 years, I let myself believe it. But outside, in the darkness, a black truck idled at the end of the street, watching, waiting.
The address came 3 days later. A text, unknown number, just coordinates and a time. Sunrise, come alone. Angela wanted to come. I told her no. Not yet. This first moment, it had to be just us. The recovery center was 2 hours north. A small building nestled in the woods, painted pale blue. Quiet. Peaceful. I parked and sat there for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to remember how to breathe. Then I saw him, standing on the porch, taller than I remembered, thinner. His face was marked, scars running along his jaw, across his forehead. His hair was longer, streaked with early gray. But his eyes, God, his eyes were the same. He stepped down slowly, hands in his pockets, like he wasn't sure I'd want him closer. I got out of the truck. We stood there, 20 feet apart, 2 decades between us. Dad? His voice cracked. I crossed the distance in 3 strides and pulled him into my arms. He collapsed against me, sobbing. I held him tight, felt how thin he was, how much he'd been through, and I cried into his shoulder like I'd never stop. I'm sorry, he choked out. I'm so sorry. Don't you dare apologize. We stood there for a long time, father and son, found. We sat on the porch steps. He told me everything. How he woke up in a warehouse after the crash, tied up. Kohler standing over him explaining that he'd seen too much, that the easiest solution was to make him disappear. How they switched the bodies. Dylan Whitley, Aaron's younger brother, a runaway with no family, had been in the passenger seat. When he died, Kohler saw an opportunity. Landon was drugged, put on a bus to West Virginia, dumped at a hospital with no ID. For 2 years, he lived in fog, couldn't remember his name, his family, anything. By the time fragments started coming back, He was too afraid. Kohler had threatened to kill me, kill Angela, and Landon believed him. So he stayed dead, took the name Marcus Key, worked under the table, moved constantly, lived in the margins. Until a nurse at West Haven, an older woman named Ruth, found an old missing persons database, saw his photo, saw the resemblance. She helped him, got him a burner SIM, taught him how to route calls through old networks so they couldn't be traced. The phone, the one buried with Dylan. I had Ruth plant the new SIM at the grave. Hoped you'd find it. Hoped you'd believe. I did. We did. He looked at me, eyes red. Is Mom? She's waiting. She wanted to come, but I told her, I want to see her. I nodded. Soon, I promise. He wiped his face. What about Kohler? Garrett's handling it. Turned everything over to the FBI. The body, the records, the photos. I looked at him. It's over, Landon. You're free. He exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for 20 years. A week later, I went back to the house, to his room. I stood in the doorway, looking at the posters, the glove, the dust. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was trespassing in a tomb. I started packing. Not to erase him, but to make space for who he was now. Angela helped. We folded clothes, boxed photos, took down the Seahawks pennant. And when we were done, we stood together in the empty room, holding hands. He's alive, she whispered. Yeah, he is. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the stars. My phone buzzed. A text from Landon. Thank you, Dad, for never letting go. I smiled. Typed back. I'd search for you in every lifetime. For 20 years, I called to a silence that never answered. Turns out, silence was calling back all the time.
So here's my question for you. Was I right to handle it this way? Tell me in the comments below, what would you have done in my position? If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more real-life tales, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Because trust me, there's so much more on this channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next life story.